My name is Lincoln Stewart, 35 years old, and until last month, I was the engineering director at Stewart Industries, my family's company. After 12 years of building their engineering department from the ground up, my parents called me into a meeting where they fired me for being too expensive. My younger brother Travis smirked across the conference table, saying they could hire 3 junior engineers for my salary. I packed my things and left without a word. Their desperate calls began 3 weeks later, exactly as I had predicted. Before I continue my story, where are you watching from? Leave a comment and subscribe for more real-life stories. I grew up in a middle-class suburb outside Boston. My childhood was pretty normal until I turned 10. That was the year my father, Gerald Stewart, started tinkering in our garage with some engineering prototypes. He had always been mechanically inclined, working as a production supervisor at a manufacturing plant, but he had bigger dreams. Those late nights in the garage eventually became Stewart Industries. "Lincoln, come look at this," Dad would call, his voice excited as he showed me his latest design improvement. I remember the smell of metal and machine oil that permanently lingered in that garage. My mother Diana handled the financial side, working evenings at the kitchen table with spreadsheets and calculators, tracking every penny they invested. "We build things right in this family," my father would tell me. "Quality and hard work, that's the Stewart way." Those early lessons shaped me more than he probably realized. I was always taking things apart to see how they worked. When I was 12, I rebuilt our lawnmower engine after it died. Dad stood watching, offering advice but letting me figure it out mostly on my own. When it roared to life, the pride in his eyes meant everything to me. My first real recognition came in 8th grade, when I won the state science fair with an automated irrigation system. The trophy still sat in the lobby of Stewart Industries until the day I left. Each year, I added more trophies to that display case. The science teachers at my high school started calling me the engineer long before I had any formal training. My relationship with my father was complicated. His pride in my accomplishments was genuine, but it came with intense pressure to excel. "You've got a gift, Lincoln," he would say. "Don't waste it." Every success raised the bar for the next achievement. When MIT accepted me with a partial scholarship, my parents scraped together everything they could to make it happen. By then, their little garage business had grown into a small but respectable manufacturing company with 20 employees. Still, college payments were a stretch. "Education is an investment," my mother insisted when I expressed concern about the cost. "You focus on your studies. We'll handle the rest." Those 4 years at MIT were transformative. I thrived in the challenging environment, graduating at the top of my class with a degree in mechanical engineering and a minor in business operations. My professors introduced me to connections at major tech companies. By graduation, I had 6 job offers, including positions in Silicon Valley and with an international firm in Germany. The starting salaries were impressive, especially to someone who grew up watching his parents count every dollar. I was planning to accept the position in California when my parents asked me to dinner. I assumed it was a celebration, but they had something else in mind. "We want you to come work for Stewart Industries," my father said, his expression unusually serious. I was shocked. Their company was still relatively small, and the salary they offered was less than half of my other opportunities. "We need your expertise, son," he continued. "This isn't just a job. It's our family legacy, something we can build together." My mother reached across the table to take my hand. "We understand if you choose one of those bigger offers, but we'd love to have you help grow what your father started." It was a difficult decision. Logically, the other opportunities made more sense for my career, but there was something compelling about helping build my family's company. After a week of consideration, I called California to decline their offer and told my parents I would join Stewart Industries after graduation. My first day was a humbling experience. Despite my degree and qualifications, Dad insisted I start at the bottom like any other employee. "You need to understand every aspect of the business," he explained, "and the team needs to know you're willing to put in the work." I spent my first 6 months on the production floor, learning processes and getting to know the employees. Some were initially suspicious of the boss's son, wondering if I'd be given special treatment. I worked twice as hard to prove them wrong, arriving early and staying late. During my first major project implementation, I spent 3 nights sleeping on the office couch to monitor production tests. After proving myself, I was given responsibility for the engineering department, which at that time consisted of just 3 people, including myself. Under my leadership, we began introducing innovative manufacturing processes. One of my early designs cut production costs by 30% while improving quality. The company grew steadily, expanding from local contracts to becoming a regional leader in precision manufacturing components. As the business expanded, so did my department. I personally vetted every engineer we hired, building a team of talented specialists who shared my commitment to excellence. Within 8 years, the engineering team had grown to 42 people across various specialized divisions. We had our own dedicated testing facility and laboratory space that I had designed. The growth came with personal sacrifices. My college girlfriend Jessica and I had stayed together after graduation, but the demands of the company strained our relationship. I postponed our engagement 3 times due to critical projects. "The company needs me right now," I would explain when canceling another date or weekend getaway. After 4 years of this pattern, Jessica finally gave me an ultimatum. "You have to choose, Lincoln," she said during our last conversation. "The company will always need you, but I need a partner who's actually present in our relationship." I asked for just a little more time to get a major project completed. She packed her things the next day. By the time I realized what I had lost, she had moved to Chicago and started a new life without me. Family gatherings were often sacrificed as well. I missed my cousin's wedding because we were finalizing a critical contract. Holidays were interrupted by emergency calls from the production floor. My mother would save me a plate of food from Thanksgiving dinner, which I'd eat cold at my desk, hours after everyone else had gone home. When the company needed funding for a specialized research project, but my parents hesitated to take the financial risk, I used $50,000 of my personal savings to get it started. That project eventually led to one of our most profitable product lines. 10 years into my tenure, my younger brother Travis joined the company after completing his MBA. He was 5 years younger than me and had never shown interest in engineering or manufacturing. His business degree made him a good fit for the sales department, which was rapidly expanding to handle our growing client base. Travis and I had always gotten along well enough. We weren't especially close growing up, but there was no particular animosity either. I made an effort to welcome him into the company, taking him to lunch his first week and introducing him to key team members. "I appreciate you showing me the ropes," Travis said during that lunch. "I know I have big shoes to fill, coming in after all you've accomplished here." I genuinely tried to mentor him, explaining our products and processes so he could represent them accurately to clients. Travis was charming and quickly established rapport with customers and vendors alike. Within 2 years, he was heading the sales department and seemed to be doing a good job. By my 11th year with the company, I had much to be proud of. The wall in my office displayed framed patents developed under my leadership. Industry awards recognized our engineering innovations. Client testimonials praised the quality and reliability of our components. Stewart Industries had grown from my father's garage dream into a respected manufacturer with over 200 employees and annual revenue exceeding $20 million. The first warning signs were subtle. Travis began bringing expensive gifts to our parents: a luxury watch for Dad's birthday, a weekend spa retreat for Mom's anniversary. These weren't unusual in themselves, but they contrasted sharply with my own more practical gifts, like the ergonomic office chair I bought to help with Dad's back problems. Travis started taking Dad on golf trips, something I'd never had time for due to my production responsibilities. They would return sunburned and laughing, sharing inside jokes from their weekend away. Meanwhile, I had spent those same days finalizing technical specifications for a major new contract. One Tuesday morning, my mother stopped by my office with questions about the engineering budget. "I'm just trying to understand why your department needs 3 testing units when most companies only use 1, she said, flipping through a spreadsheet I hadn't seen before. "Where did you get those comparison numbers?" I asked, surprised by the question. "Travis compiled them for me," she replied casually. "He's been researching industry standards." I didn't think much of it at the time. In retrospect, I should have recognized it as the first move in a carefully orchestrated game. After months of research and planning, I was excited to present my proposal for an advanced automation system that would revolutionize our production capabilities. I had spent countless late nights perfecting the design, calculating the return on investment, and creating detailed implementation timeline. The system would require significant upfront investment, but would pay for itself within 18 months and position us years ahead of our competitors. The leadership meeting included my parents, Travis, and the heads of each department. I walked through my presentation with enthusiasm, explaining how this innovation would transform our manufacturing process. When I finished, the room fell silent. "That's certainly ambitious," my father finally said, tapping his pen against the table. "The cost seems excessive," my mother added, frowning at the budget page. "We'll need to think about this," Dad concluded. "Let's table it for now and revisit next quarter." I was disappointed but understood the caution. The investment was substantial, and I needed to respect their concerns about cash flow. What I couldn't understand came 3 weeks later when Travis presented an almost identical proposal during the next leadership meeting. His version had minor cosmetic changes and actually increased the overall cost by adding unnecessary features. Yet my parents responded with enthusiasm. "This is exactly the kind of forward thinking we need," my father exclaimed, clapping Travis on the shoulder. "I'm impressed with the detail you've put into this," my mother added. They approved his proposal on the spot, with my father announcing it would be implemented immediately under Travis's oversight. I sat there stunned, wondering if I was misremembering my own presentation. Had I failed to communicate the benefits clearly, or was something else happening? My confusion deepened when I accidentally discovered that Travis had hired an external consulting firm to evaluate the efficiency of the engineering department. I learned about it when a consultant called my office directly, asking for additional data for his report. "What report?" I asked, completely unaware of any assessment. "The operational efficiency evaluation Mr. Travis Stewart commissioned," he replied, sounding equally confused by my ignorance. "I assumed you had been briefed. I hadn't been informed that my department, my team, was being evaluated by outside consultants." When I approached my father about it, he waved off my concerns. "Travis is just getting some objective feedback on company operations. Don't take it personally." But it felt personal when the company held a dinner celebrating Travis's promotion to executive vice president after just 5 years with the firm. I congratulated him sincerely, despite my private concerns about the rapid advancement. During the dinner, I overheard my father telling one of our biggest clients that Travis is the future of the company. He didn't mention my role in building that future at all. The changes became more noticeable after that dinner. Suddenly, all engineering budget requests required additional layers of approval. Purchase orders for essential equipment sat on my mother's desk for weeks, while sales department requests were processed immediately. Projects stalled because we couldn't get necessary resources, leading to missed deadlines that had never occurred under my management before. Travis hired 3 friends from his business school days for newly created positions with vague titles like Strategic Innovation Coordinator and Client Experience Director. Their glass-walled offices were larger than mine, despite their lack of seniority. An HR document accidentally shared with me revealed their salaries were significantly higher than some of my senior engineers who had been with the company for years. After several months of these concerning patterns, I decided to confront my parents privately. I chose a Sunday dinner at their home, away from the office environment. "I feel like I'm being sidelined," I said carefully, after we had finished eating. "Decisions about my department are being made without my input, and resources I need are being delayed or denied." My father's expression hardened. "You're being too sensitive, Lincoln. Every department has to justify its expenditures." "This isn't about expenditures," I tried to explain. "It's about communication and respect for the processes I've built." "You need to be a team player," my mother interjected. "The company is growing, and things change." My father leaned forward, his tone condescending, in a way I'd never heard him use with me before. "Perhaps you should focus on engineering and leave the business decisions to those with the proper training." I left their house that night with a hollow feeling in my chest. For the first time, I questioned whether my decision to join the family business had been a mistake. The company's 25th anniversary party should have been a celebration of what we had all built together. Instead, it became another instance of my contributions being overlooked. Travis gave a lengthy speech highlighting the production improvements that had propelled our growth. These were systems I had personally designed and implemented, yet he presented them as general company achievements without acknowledging my leadership role. My parents beamed with pride throughout his presentation, while I sat silently at my table, increasingly aware of my changing status in the company hierarchy. My team members began to notice the shift as well. Madison, a senior engineer who had been with me for 7 years, stopped by my office after a particularly contentious budget meeting. "Is everything okay with the family, Lincoln?" she asked cautiously. The dynamics seemed tense lately. I maintained a professional demeanor, not wanting to drag my team into family politics. "Just some different perspectives on growth strategy," I said with a forced smile. Nothing to worry about, but there was plenty to worry about, as I discovered when a major client requested to meet with me about a new project. Travis intercepted the request, insisting he would handle the client relationship himself. Later, I learned he had pitched my automation project to them as his own idea. The client, impressed with the technical specifications but wanting to work with the engineer who developed them, had specifically asked for me. Travis ensured that didn't happen. "The client needs a single point of contact," he explained when I confronted him. "It's more efficient this way." I swallowed my frustration and focused on supporting my team, who were increasingly caught in the crossfire of the shifting power dynamics. The situation deteriorated rapidly over the following months. Travis began openly challenging my technical decisions during meetings, despite having no engineering background whatsoever. He would question project timelines that were based on years of experience and empirical data. "Are you sure that needs 2 weeks of testing?" he would ask in front of the entire leadership team. "Seems excessive for such a simple component." When I explained the quality control requirements and potential failure points that necessitated thorough testing, he would make sarcastic comments about unnecessary perfectionism and how perfect is the enemy of profitable. My parents increasingly sided with Travis during these disagreements. My mother started using phrases like "too expensive for the current market" when referring to engineering standards I had maintained for years. My father would sigh heavily whenever I defended our quality protocols, as though my commitment to excellence had become a character flaw. The interference extended beyond meetings. Carlos, my award-winning senior engineer, who had been with the company for 9 years, was suddenly reassigned to a different department without any consultation with me. His replacement was one of Travis's college friends who had minimal qualifications for the specialized role. Team morale suffered noticeably, with several engineers expressing concerns about the changing priorities. "We used to be about quality first," one veteran team member said during a private conversation. "Now it feels like we're just chasing quick profits." During a company financial meeting, Travis presented charts showing the engineering department as a cost center rather than a value creator. He highlighted our budget without contextualizing it against the revenue generated by our innovations. When I attempted to provide that context, I was interrupted repeatedly. My parents nodded along with Travis's misleading analysis, apparently accepting his narrative without question. For the quarterly board presentation, I prepared a comprehensive efficiency proposal demonstrating how strategic investments in engineering would yield substantial long-term returns. Somehow, the presentation file was lost before the meeting, forcing me to present unprepared with outdated slides Travis helpfully provided. He smirked throughout my improvised presentation, exchanging knowing glances with my father whenever I struggled to recall specific data points. The sabotage became even more blatant when I overheard Travis telling a potential client that our engineering team was resistant to innovation despite the fact that we had implemented 6 industry-first technologies in the previous year alone. The client later canceled the project, citing concerns about technical leadership as their reason. Shortly after that incident, a company-wide email announced another restructuring. The engineering department would lose its dedicated testing facility, with the space being converted to expanded sales offices. When I protested about the critical nature of the testing facility for quality control, my concerns were dismissed as departmental territoriality. To compensate for the reduced resources and maintain the standards I refused to compromise, I began working nights and weekends. My health started suffering from the stress and overwork. I developed insomnia, often lying awake, worrying about the company's future and my place in it. The anxiety followed me throughout the day, a constant companion as I tried to navigate the increasingly hostile environment. Thanksgiving that year was particularly difficult. At dinner in my parents' home, Travis received an expensive watch as a gift for all his hard work growing the company. I received a generic card. Throughout the meal, my parents discussed expansion plans with Travis while barely acknowledging my presence, despite the fact that any expansion would rely heavily on engineering capabilities. The final straw came when I discovered accounting manipulations that made my department appear significantly over budget. Digging deeper into the finance records, I found that many of the successful cost-saving innovations my team had implemented were being credited to the sales department in internal reports. When I attempted to correct this misattribution, my efforts were labeled as petty, interdepartmental rivalry. "Why are you always competing with your brother?" my mother asked when I showed her the discrepancies. "The company is doing well. Does it really matter who gets credit?" It mattered to me. It mattered to my team. And it should have mattered to the integrity of the company my parents had built on principles of honest work and fair treatment. But those principles seemed to be changing, and I was increasingly being cast as the problem for adhering to them. It was a Friday afternoon when a meeting suddenly appeared on my calendar. The subject line simply stated strategic discussion. No agenda, no additional information. It was scheduled for 4:30, which struck me as odd for an important discussion, but I adjusted my day to ensure I could properly prepare. When I arrived at the conference room, I immediately sensed something was wrong. My parents were there, along with Travis, HR Director Sophia, and Richard, the company attorney. The atmosphere was tense and formal, nothing like our usual family business discussions. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. My father sat stiffly, hands folded on the table in front of him. Travis leaned back in his chair with a barely concealed expression of satisfaction. "Lincoln," my father began, his voice unnaturally businesslike. "We've called this meeting to discuss some difficult decisions we've had to make in light of current economic challenges." I remained silent, watching him struggle to maintain his corporate tone. "The board has been evaluating our organizational structure," he continued, though we all knew the board essentially meant my parents and Travis. "We've determined that certain high-level positions are no longer aligned with our strategic direction." My father nodded to Sophia, who activated a PowerPoint presentation. The first slide showed a restructuring plan with my position eliminated entirely. The engineering department was being downgraded and merged with production under Travis's oversight. "Your position as engineering director is being eliminated, effective immediately," my father stated, unable to maintain eye contact as he delivered the words. "We want to thank you for your years of service to Stewart Industries." My mother pushed a document across the table with trembling hands. "This is your severance agreement," she said softly. 2 weeks' pay for each year of service. 24 weeks' pay for 12 years of dedication. For building their engineering department from the ground up. For all the nights and weekends I'd sacrificed. For choosing family loyalty over more lucrative opportunities. I sat there utterly still, trying to process what was happening. My own parents were firing me from the family business. Travis leaned forward, a smirk visible only to me. "We can get 3 junior engineers for your salary. Nothing personal, just cost-cutting." The satisfaction in his eyes contradicted his words. This was entirely personal. My parents didn't contradict his statement, despite the fact that the company had reported record profits in the last quarter. They sat in uncomfortable silence, having delegated the cruelty to my brother. I felt my stomach drop and my face burn, but I maintained a composed expression. 12 years of dedication had been reduced to a cold business transaction by my own family. The betrayal was so profound it felt physical, like a blow to the chest that left me struggling to breathe normally. Sophia, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, explained the exit procedures in a professional but gentle tone. My building access would be revoked immediately. I would need to pack my personal items under supervision. Company property, including my laptop and phone, would need to be surrendered before I left the building. I signed the paperwork without comment, refusing to give them the emotional reaction they seemed to be expecting. I stood with as much dignity as I could muster, despite feeling physically ill from the betrayal. "Is there anything you'd like to say, Lincoln?" my father asked, finally looking at me directly. I considered all the things I could say. About loyalty, about family, about the years I had given to their company at the expense of my own personal life. In the end, I simply said, "No, I think everything is perfectly clear." A security guard waited outside the conference room to escort me to my office. We walked through the engineering department, past the shocked expressions of team members who had no warning that their leader was being removed. Some stood from their desks, looking confused and concerned. Madison stepped toward me but was gently blocked by the guard. "I'll contact you all later," I said quietly, maintaining my professional demeanor in this final humiliation. "Keep up the good work." Travis followed us to my office door, offering an insincere best wishes for your future endeavors, loud enough for others to hear. Then he leaned closer and added, "I'll take good care of your team," with a satisfied expression that made his true meaning clear. I had 12 years of personal items in that office. Photos of team achievements at industry events, prototypes of successful designs, books and reference materials I'd collected. The guard stood awkwardly by the door while I packed what I could into a cardboard box. I carefully placed the photos of team achievements inside, but deliberately left the awards and patents developed under my leadership on the walls. A silent statement about my legacy that they couldn't pack away. The walk through the building to the parking garage was the longest of my life. Employees I had worked with for years watched in stunned silence as I carried my box past their desks, escorted like a criminal rather than the person who had helped build this company. Once inside my car in the underground parking, I sat motionless for 30 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I felt no tears, only a profound emptiness and disbelief. The family relationship I had valued above my own career opportunities had been fundamentally altered forever in a single Friday afternoon meeting. I arrived at my apartment and placed the box of belongings in the closet without unpacking it. The stark reality of my situation hadn't fully registered yet. For 12 years, my identity had been inextricably linked to Stewart Industries. Now that connection was severed, leaving me unmoored in a way I had never experienced before. My phone began ringing almost immediately with calls from confused colleagues. After answering the third call and struggling to explain what had happened, I simply disconnected the phone and sat in the dark living room, contemplating the 12 years that suddenly seemed wasted. The weekend passed in a haze of isolation. My parents sent a single text message asking if I got home safely, as though they had simply dropped me off after a family dinner rather than terminated my career. I didn't respond. Travis posted on social media about an exciting new chapter for Stewart Industries Engineering, complete with a photo of him standing in what had been my office, my diplomas still visible on the wall behind him. Monday morning was surreal. For 12 years, I had followed the same purpose-driven routine. Early arrival at the office, team check-ins, production oversight, design reviews. Now I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, restless energy coursing through me with nowhere to direct it. For the first time, I realized that along with the painful betrayal came an unexpected freedom. I was no longer bound by family obligation or company politics. Around 11, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Rajiv, one of my senior design engineers, standing there with 2 cups of coffee. "I took a long lunch," he said simply, handing me one of the cups. "Thought you might want to hear what's happening." Over the next hour, Rajiv described the chaotic aftermath at the company. Travis had already begun dismantling the quality control systems I had implemented, claiming they were unnecessarily rigorous. 3 senior engineers were updating their resumes in protest. The production team was confused about reporting structures, with contradictory instructions coming from different managers. "They announced that you resigned to pursue other opportunities," Rajiv said, shaking his head in disgust. "Everyone who was there Friday knows that's not what happened." The official company narrative contradicted the humiliating reality of my dismissal. My parents were attempting to control the story, preserving their image as fair employers, while casting me as the one who had abandoned the family business. After Rajiv left, the emotional wall I had maintained finally crumbled. Alone in my apartment, I experienced my first genuine breakdown since the firing. The full magnitude of the betrayal washed over me in waves. 12 years of loyalty had been repaid with lies and dismissal. Family ties had meant less than profit margins. The people I had trusted most had orchestrated my removal with calculated precision. Later that afternoon, I received a call from Professor Williams, my former mentor from MIT, who had kept in touch over the years. News traveled fast in our industry. "I heard what happened, Lincoln," he said after I confirmed the rumors. "I've always thought your exceptional talent was being wasted in that family company. You could have been leading innovation at a global level." His words made me reflect on the opportunities I had declined out of family loyalty. The Silicon Valley position, the international firm in Germany, the startup that had sought me as a founding partner. I had chosen Stewart Industries over all of them, believing in the value of building something with my family. "You know," Professor Williams continued, "several of my industry contacts have been asking about you over the years. If you're finally available, there would be significant interest." The first week after the firing passed in an emotional fog. I alternated between anger, grief, and moments of unexpected clarity. I began to recognize unhealthy patterns in our family dynamic that had existed long before the current situation. The way my achievements had always been expected rather than celebrated. How Travis's charm had always won him easier paths to approval. The subtle competition my parents had fostered between us since childhood. I remembered earlier warning signs I had ignored out of loyalty. The gradual exclusion from strategic decisions. The reallocation of resources away from engineering despite our proven track record. The way my parents increasingly deferred to Travis's opinions on matters where my expertise was clearly superior. As the initial shock faded, I found myself becoming more analytical about the situation. I created comprehensive documentation of my contributions to the company, patents that existed only because of my innovation, client relationships built on trust in my technical expertise, manufacturing improvements that had saved millions in production costs. The financial impact of my work was substantial and demonstrable. 10 days after the firing, I received a call from Jackson, the CEO of one of our major clients. We had worked together for years and had developed a friendship beyond the business relationship. "Lincoln, I heard what happened and wanted to reach out," he said. "Just between us, that project Travis pitched us is experiencing serious problems. The replacement team doesn't understand the underlying architecture of the system you design." He shared that they were considering canceling the contract, worth $3 million, due to concerns about Stewart Industries' ability to deliver without my involvement. "Would you be interested in consulting directly with us?" Jackson asked. "We'd much rather work with you than start over with another vendor." His offer planted the first seed of what would become my next chapter. By the end of the second week after my firing, I had begun to see potential futures beyond Stewart Industries. I researched industry needs that matched my specialized expertise. Former competitors made discreet inquiries about my availability. The professional reputation I had built over 12 years was opening doors I hadn't considered before. My mother called repeatedly during this period, but I let most calls go to voicemail. When I finally answered, she attempted an awkward normal conversation, asking about my apartment and whether I was eating properly. She made no acknowledgement of the situation, speaking as though I had simply moved away rather than been fired by my own family. "Mom," I said firmly after a few minutes of this surreal small talk, "I need some time and space to process what happened. When I'm ready to talk about it, I'll call you." I ended the call feeling both grief and a strange sense of empowerment. For the first time in my adult life, I was setting boundaries with my family based on my needs rather than their expectations. After 3 weeks of reflection, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of my career. Instead of seeking another corporate position, I would establish my own engineering consulting firm. My industry reputation could help secure initial clients, and the specialized expertise I had developed at Stewart Industries was in high demand. The decision felt right immediately. I would be using all the skills I had honed over the years, but with the freedom to set my own standards and choose projects aligned with my values. I secured a small business loan, using my home as collateral, and began setting up a legal entity. Madison, who had been with me at Stewart Industries for 7 years, called to check on me as she had done several times since my departure. When I mentioned my plans for the consulting business, She immediately expressed interest. "I'm giving my notice tomorrow," she said without hesitation. "The environment there has become toxic. Travis has no idea how to manage engineering talent." She became my first employee, bringing valuable institutional knowledge and technical expertise to the new venture. Her confidence in me, willing to leave a secure position for my unproven startup, provided validation when I needed it most. We rented small office space in a building that also housed a major industry player. The location was strategic, positioning us in the same professional ecosystem as potential clients. I focused our business model on innovative engineering solutions that Stewart Industries had deemed too expensive, recognizing there was a market for the quality-driven approach I had always advocated. Within 2 weeks of establishing the company, industry grapevine brought news about Stewart Industries facing significant problems. Travis had implemented aggressive cost-cutting measures that were damaging product quality. Key clients were expressing concerns about recent deliveries, with 2 returning entire shipments due to specification deviation. I was careful to avoid direct competition with my family's company, instead focusing on specialized market segments requiring higher expertise. My business strategy wasn't about revenge, but building something that reflected my professional values. Still, I couldn't help feeling vindicated as news of Stewart Industries' struggles reached me. 4 weeks after my firing, I received the first desperate call from my father. "Lincoln," he said after an awkward greeting, "how have you been?" "Fine," I replied simply, not making the conversation easy for him. After uncomfortable small talk, he finally reached the purpose of his call. "We're having some issues with the thermal regulation process you developed. The team can't seem to get it calibrated correctly. I was hoping you might give us some pointers." He was asking for free consultation on a system I had designed from the company that had fired me. The audacity was almost impressive. "I'm afraid I can't help with that," I replied calmly. "That information would be part of a paid consulting arrangement, which I don't think would be appropriate given the circumstances of my departure." "This is family, Lincoln," he said, his tone sharpening. "You can't just withhold information that could hurt the company." "You made it clear that business comes before family," I reminded him. "I'm simply following the precedent that was established." My consulting firm grew faster than I had anticipated. Within the first month, I secured contracts with 2 mid-sized manufacturers who had been secondary clients at Stewart Industries. They had followed my career and trusted my expertise. The projects were challenging and financially rewarding, allowing me to hire 3 additional engineers, all former Stewart employees seeking escape from the deteriorating company culture. I offered better salaries than they had received at Stewart Industries, along with profit sharing and genuine appreciation for their expertise. The contrast in management style was stark, and word spread quickly through the industry about the positive environment we were creating. 6 weeks after launching, I was invited to present at a major industry conference. My paper on innovative approaches to precision manufacturing was well received, earning a standing ovation from the audience. Travis sat uncomfortably in the 3rd row, having been sent by my parents to report back on my activities. After the presentation, I was approached by multiple companies interested in collaboration. My professional reputation was not only intact, but enhanced by my independent venture. That evening, I received the second call from my parents. This time, my mother was crying. "Lincoln, we need your help," she said without preamble. "Maxwell Corporation is threatening to cancel their contract over quality issues. They specifically asked for you." Maxwell was their largest client, representing nearly 20% of annual revenue. Losing them would be devastating to the company. "We're willing to bring you back as a consultant," my father added, clearly on speakerphone. "We can pay premium rates for your expertise." "I appreciate the offer," I replied carefully, "but my company is fully committed with current projects. I don't have availability for additional consulting work at this time." I could have added that no amount of money could repair the trust that had been broken. But there was no need to verbalize what we all understood. 7 weeks after my dismissal, news reached me that Travis's promised 3 junior engineers had failed spectacularly in implementing a critical system update. The production line had shut down completely, costing the company $50,000 daily in lost productivity. The engineers were refusing to work excessive overtime to fix problems they had warned about but been instructed to ignore. Around the same time, my new patent application for a system improvement made industry news. 2 former Stewart Industries clients called to inquire about implementation possibilities. Our firm expanded to larger office space within 2 months of launch, adding 4 more engineers to handle increasing demand. The third increasingly desperate call from my father came shortly after. "Lincoln," he began without the awkward small talk of previous calls, "we want to offer you your position back, with a substantial raise and expanded responsibilities." When I remained silent, he continued, "There was a misunderstanding about the restructuring. We never intended for you to leave the company permanently." This attempt to reframe my firing as a miscommunication was both offensive and revealing. They weren't seeking reconciliation, but a solution to their mounting problem. "Dad," I said calmly, "I appreciate the offer, but I'm building something of my own now. Family bridges can't be rebuilt with money alone." "This isn't about money," he insisted, though we both knew otherwise. "It's about family. Family was your justification when you wanted my loyalty at below market rates," I pointed out. "It stopped being about family the moment Travis said you could replace me with 3 junior engineers." There was a long silence before he spoke again. "Your mother misses you." "I miss her too," I said honestly, "but that's a separate conversation from business decisions." 3 months after starting my consultancy, I was approached by Stewart Industries' largest client. They weren't merely considering a switch to my firm. They were actively pursuing it after multiple quality issues with recent orders. I was careful not to actively poach clients, but I also wouldn't refuse business that came to me legitimately. I drew an ethical line at using inside information, while maintaining my right to compete fairly in the open market. When the client formally transferred their contract to my firm, it represented a significant milestone. My company was no longer just surviving. It was actively thriving. 6 months after being fired from the family company, my engineering consultancy employed 15 people, including 7 former Stewart Industries employees who had sought more fulfilling work environments. Our reputation for innovation and quality had grown beyond the regional market, attracting clients from across the country. I found unexpected fulfillment in building something truly my own, guided by the values and standards I had always believed in. Stewart Industries continued to struggle with quality issues and client confidence. Travis's leadership proved inadequate for addressing technical challenges, particularly as experienced engineers continued to leave for better opportunities. My parents faced the consequences of prioritizing family politics over competence, watching their company's reputation slowly erode in an industry where I had helped establish their credibility. On a personal level, life took a surprising turn when I ran into Jessica, my former girlfriend, at an industry event in Chicago. She had become the procurement director for a major manufacturing corporation. "I heard you finally escaped the family business," she said after we exchanged initial pleasantries. Over dinner that evening, we reflected on how the demands of the company had prevented our relationship from succeeding years ago. My new work-life balance, with a leadership team that shared responsibilities, allowed me time for personal connections I had previously sacrificed. "You seem different," Jessica observed. "More at peace with yourself." She was right. Despite the painful catalyst, the transformation in my life had been positive. I was leading on my own terms, creating a company culture that valued both excellence and well-being. 7 months after the firing, my parents requested a meeting at a neutral location, a restaurant halfway between our offices. Travis was notably absent from this reconciliation attempt. "We made a serious mistake," my father admitted after we had ordered coffee. He looked older than I remembered, the stress of recent months evident in the new lines around his eyes. "The company hasn't been the same without you," my mother added, reaching for my hand across the table. I allowed the contact briefly before gently withdrawing. They offered a partnership position with controlling interest in Stewart Industries, clearly hoping to leverage my expertise to save the struggling company. "I appreciate the offer," I said sincerely, "but I don't think our business relationship can be restored. Too much has happened." Their disappointment was visible, but I continued. "However, I am willing to begin rebuilding our family relationship separately from any business concerns. That will require time, clear boundaries, and different patterns of communication than we've had in the past. It was a start, a small opening for healing that had nothing to do with corporate structure or profit margins. They accepted this limited offer with evident relief. The painful experience had taught me valuable lessons I might never have learned otherwise. I recognized the importance of self-worth beyond family validation. I understood how to identify toxic patterns even in loved ones, patterns I might have continued to excuse out of misplaced loyalty. Most importantly, I discovered the freedom that comes from standing firmly for personal values, even when that stance comes at significant cost. 9 months after starting my company, we won a prestigious Industry Innovation Award that had previously been dominated by Stewart Industries. At the ceremony, I was surprised to see my father in attendance. He approached afterward and offered genuine congratulations. "You've built something remarkable," he said, a hint of regret in his expression. "I'm proud of what you've accomplished." It was a small step toward healing, an acknowledgement that some relationships can evolve rather than simply end. We would never return to what we had been before, but perhaps we could build something new with clearer boundaries and mutual respect. Looking back on the journey, I recognize the unexpected gift of being forced to create my own path. Had I not been deemed too expensive, I might have continued compromising my values and potential for the sake of family harmony. Being fired opened the door to discovering my true value in the marketplace of ideas and innovation. The team members who believed in my vision enough to follow me from Stewart Industries became more than colleagues. They were partners in creating a company culture emphasizing respect and recognition, elements that had been increasingly absent from the family business. Their loyalty meant more than any corporate title or family obligation. 10 months after my dismissal, my company received a major international contract that would have been beyond Stewart Industries' capabilities even when I was there. We celebrated with a team dinner, raising glasses to the journey that had brought us together. "Sometimes the most painful endings create the most meaningful beginnings," I told them, looking around at the talented individuals who had helped build something truly exceptional. "Here's to finding where we truly belong." Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between family loyalty and your own well-being? Let me know in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that sometimes the greatest growth comes after our most painful losses. Thank you for listening to my journey.